Greetings, fellow mortals. I'm P. Transarella, the informative fella, here to talk about a little of everything. Links to my sources will be found in the video description below in case you want to check out what articles I am basing my presented information on. Welcome to today's video on the power of optimism. So it's 2011. I'm 20 years old and I have made the decision to join roller derby. One catch though, I do not know how to skate at all. I am purely motivated by my thoughts of thinking that the sport was cool looking and occupied by the mental image of Elliot Page strapping on his Barbie roller skates. So I start showing up to practices, and it turns out that some of the veteran skaters are really into hazing the fresh meat. Now, I didn't lie to myself. I knew that I sucked at skating, and listening to these insults was a constant blow to my ego. So what did I do? How on earth was I going to be an optimist about this situation? Well, without knowing it at the time, my self-talk sounded a lot like some classic explanatory styles that optimists and pessimists engage in. Very Well Mind breaks down explanatory styles into three categories: stable versus unstable, which is whether or not things will change or stay the same. Global versus local, which is whether the situation is reflecting a single portion or the entirety of your life. And internal versus external, which is who takes blame or credit for the things that happen to you. So in a negative situation, optimists place blame on external factors, seeing failures as being isolated or localized into this one area, and that this bad situation will change for the better, making the bad that is happening unstable. Conversely, pessimists internalize negative events, blaming themselves for the bad things that happen, believing that more bad things will happen or will continue to happen in a stable way and must be a reflection of bad things happening to their whole life areas, i.e. globally. So back to roller derby. I certainly wasn't succeeding or improving at a visible rate, but I didn't think that this meant that I wasn't good at anything. I just wasn't particularly good at this one thing. And why would roller derby be easy for anyone? You more or less are crashing into people full speed on skates while having to pay attention to 30 things at once. So I had the thought process that of placing blame externally, because roller derby is hard. I was taking on a lot by doing this thing, but that made my initial failure very localized. Lastly, just like with anything new that you try that is hard at first, the more you do it, the less hard it will become, reflecting that this situation of me sucking at the sport was unstable. It can change if I just keep trying. So I did keep trying, and eventually I earned Most Improved Skater during an end of the season party. My optimistic explanatory style served me well, overcoming the negative comments I was hearing by focusing on my positive self-talk. The power of optimism is power indeed. I bet I know what some of you are thinking. Optimism is for the naive and it's super dumb. And that's probably because optimism gets a bad rap, partially due to the media's representation of what optimism looks like. We are given these characters with infectious smiles and wide open arms, ready to take on anything. And so far that sounds good. But qualities that these characters also have are things like becoming complacent with not being recognized for your efforts, pushing down your trauma in the name of looking happy all the time, continuing to do things even though it might be better to cut your losses and try something else, and putting so much focus on lifting everyone else up around you that you break apart. This specifically is toxic positivity and is very much the negative side of going too far with what you think optimism is. Now, side note, I actually really love all of these characters, and they definitely have a lot of endearing qualities and great moments where their sunny dispositions do get them through some tough situations. I just think that overall, they are good examples of overvaluing positive feelings while ignoring or even repressing negative ones. So, what exactly is optimism? You know, the one that doesn't undermine your trauma. In my psychology class, I learned that optimism is marked by the nature of your response when you are faced with an obstacle. Optimists often reframe stressful situations as a challenge to overcome rather than a barrier that holds them back. And committing to be an optimist can lead to several improvements in many aspects of your life, namely your interpersonal skills and subsequent success, your mental health, and your physical health. Being an optimist can mean a lot of good things as far as your interpersonal skills, which can translate into good school, work, and relationship experiences. Here's the thing: optimism is the cornerstone of emotional intelligence. And I gotta say, emotional intelligence is totally a superpower. And the best thing is that you can work on and improve it throughout your life. If you have a chance, check out videos of Daniel Goleman talking about emotional intelligence because there's a lot of great content there. But it's too much for me to cover right now. So, without going on a tangent, emotionally intelligent people have skills in self awareness, managing emotions, motivation, empathy, and social skills. And optimism ties nicely into these skills because, as I said, optimism is your response to obstacles, which takes some self awareness to hone in on those explanatory styles so you can walk yourself through your thoughts and emotions and push through and keep a steady momentum on your motivation to stick through it to the end. And if you're going to keep on with whatever the hard thing is, it's going to take some skills in managing your emotions, especially when other people are involved. If you are able to keep a positive outlook, other people will notice and often join in with you or admire and reward you. Obstacles can be a stepping stone of achievement. And for some of us, obstacles are a huge motivator, allowing us to find new solutions and promoting out of the box thinking to get the job done in a way that is uniquely our own. ExploringYourMind.com says that an optimistic mindset makes us more inclined to directly resolve the problem at hand. At the same time, it can prevent us from falling into the typical mistake of trying to forget or run away from that painful or distressing element. This can mean stronger conflict resolution and a keener sense of those social skills to navigate issues that arise in different social situations. Optimists often seek solutions, whereas pessimists can get caught in a loop, focusing on the bad and unable to see a solution in sight. And that attitude of sticking to things instead of freezing up or running away can lead to great things. Oftentimes, it's best to just keep swimming. So let's take a minute and frame this into a real life situation. So it's 2014 and I'm working a fast food job. You know the one. I'm assembling sandwiches and we've got a drive through. So I'm working this 10-hour shift with no break. My feet hurt. I smell like bread, but I haven't eaten a thing all day. I have at least 3 hours of prep to do, but it's 5 p.m. and the lobby and the drive through are completely full with long lines with no end in sight. And the only other person there is brand new and only trained on the register. And I have bread in the oven that's going to burn if I don't take it out soon to top it all off. Now, you've probably either been in this situation or have seen it play out in front of you, and I'm going to point out a few things before I proceed with my story. 1. These work conditions are unacceptable. 2. If you are in this situation, please talk to HR because I didn't and I really should have. And 3. Just because I'm about to describe applying optimism to this situation does not mean that I am shaming you if you respond to this same situation in a pessimistic way. Because if you are being treated like this at work, you have every right to be mad. Anyhow, the situation obviously wasn't ideal for me. And I had a mix of customers who were mad, but also empathetic and sympathizing with me. So instead of shutting down and focusing on all the work that I had to do and being preoccupied by this long line of people, I decided to instead take a breath, And I broke this situation down into smaller parts. So I decided to work with what I had. And what I had was I had somebody trained on the register, and I was skilled just working on the line. So what I did was I did a little bit of dictating, delegating, and I told my coworker to just run back and forth between the two registers, between the lobby and the drive-through window, and instructed him also to assemble the sides and drinks while I handled at least like 3 to 4 customers, depending on the size of the orders. So it went like this for about 2 hours, and we did get through it, and I didn't burn the bread. After the rush was over, though, I went to the back. I took a deep breath in the walk-in freezer, which, by the way, can really help calm you down if you need a quick temperature change, and some deep breathing can be your best friends. And then I directed my attention to the tasks that needed to be completed before my coworker went home. It was an extremely stressful situation, but I chose to frame it as a challenge instead of a barrier, and I got through it okay because of this response. The power of optimism is power indeed. There are many mental health benefits, especially on the topic of depression. Optimistic people do not experience depression as often as pessimistic people do. Very Well Mind discusses Martin Seligman's ABCDE model of learned optimism. It is important to note that this model is strongly based on cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. Now, there's lots of research on CBT, and so much that I'll probably do an episode on it at a later date. But all you need to know for now is that this method is focused on identifying underlying thoughts that influence behaviors and then actively challenging such beliefs. So it goes like this. You identify these aspects: adversity, the situation that calls for a response; belief, how we interpret the event; consequence, the way that we behave, respond, or feel; disputation, the effort we expend to argue or dispute the belief; and energization, the outcome that emerges from trying to challenge our beliefs. So you take yourself through these phrases in order to gauge whether you have a more pessimistic or optimistic mindset, and challenge yourself to adopt the latter. Adopting optimism into your daily life can help you get through hard days, and you will see improvements in your mental health. A quick note, though, that just because pessimistic people experience depression more often, it doesn't mean that optimistic people don't still struggle with depression. Simply being optimistic will not get rid of your depression, and if you are struggling, please don't hesitate to get professional help. I am an optimist, but I do still have some mental illnesses, and some days even my optimism doesn't help my symptoms. So it's important to call a crisis hotline, or your therapist, or a trusted friend if you need it. But in general, optimistic people have less stress and recover from upsetting situations quicker. This ties into, once again, how that quicker recovery is because of how stress is framed as a challenge instead of a barrier. So optimistic people are more inclined to be resilient and have quicker recovery. The power of optimism is power indeed. So how about these physical health benefits? Well, Harvard had a lot to say about it, but here are some of the points that I found interesting. Optimism decreases the risk of hypertension, therefore decreasing the risk of coronary heart disease. It improves immune function, which helps fight diseases with a higher antibody response. Those with a sunny outlook recover from cardiac surgery more successfully and in less time. Those with a positive personality style develop less viral symptoms. And optimists live 19% longer, showing that having a positive outlook will increase your overall health and therefore lengthen your life. But the question is why? There are a few answers based on observations in this Harvard study. Those are that optimists tend to lead healthier lifestyles, build stronger support networks, are more compliant to medical care, and more likely to get medical advice. The results to being a long term optimist is an increase in life expectancy, less frail elderly with longer independent living, and a significant decrease in long term health conditions. There are also there are so many studies listed in this article, and it's pretty interesting stuff. Who knew that something like a mindset could be so beneficial to things like heart health? The power of optimism is power indeed. And so, where do we go from here? Because looking more into what optimism is and what it is not, it certainly seems like we're on to something here. Maybe optimism isn't the language of the naive, but rather the mindset of the healthy and successful. So, how does one go about becoming an optimist? Surely it's not something that we get from mailing in box tops from our Kraft mac and cheese. Although, if it was, I probably would have 10 optimisms by now, so Kraft really needs to pay up. But as an optimist myself, I would say to start small, because optimism is not an easy mindset you can just jump right into. It's hard, folks, especially if you're surrounded by pessimists or because of the quarantine, surrounded by yourself. I feel like us optimists have the unofficial catchphrase of everything will be okay. But there's a lot of weight to that everything, let me tell you. And acting like things will be okay and believing that things will be okay are two different things. But if you really believe it, chances are you will be able to go with the flow and have some interesting adventures. So, how about starting with some smaller things that will be okay? Like maybe pick a part of your day that you are looking forward to. For example, I just started marathoning Jackie Chan Adventures, and so now, I kind of have a reason to come home and something to look forward to. So maybe you have your own show that you're really excited about binging. So tell yourself, I will be okay when I get home because I get to watch Jackie Chan Adventures in my case. And also, let's not downplay that going home feeling, which can be filled with a sense of relief, which a lot of us really depend on. So set that small expectation for yourself. When you get home, it will be okay, and reward yourself for making it home to where it is okay. After all, you are an integral part of your day, and you did it. So, just like with the explanatory styles, give yourself some of that internal credit where credit is due. If something good happens to you, trust that you did something right because you probably did. And then you can build from there by setting other small okay goals for yourself, eventually building this pattern of finding good things to even the worst of days. Because you can still have bad days where something goes wrong. Even then, though, remember that the key is in how you frame it. Remember that I'm not promoting toxic positivity where all you do is just swat away the bad things and pretend that you're just peachy keen. No. As an optimist, you still need to address what is happening and meet that bad stuff with solutions. Honing in on this ability to find solutions, even when things look rough, can be very valuable. I have terrible days all the time, sometimes multiple days in a row. And if you worked retail during quarantine, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Something about the whole globe collectively going through grief and isolation put us all in a bad mood at the same time. Go figure. So, I think that we all know that bad work days can happen, especially during a pandemic, but it's important not to take the bad home with you. Bad things do happen, but they can be temporary bad things if we choose to learn from them and meet our obstacles with solutions and creative thinking to get us through the problem. The power of optimism is power indeed. So, in closing, optimism does have benefits to it, and it's worth trying to adopt into your daily life, even if it is in just those small ways. An important part of adopting an optimistic outlook is looking ahead to when the possibilities of outcomes are endless. So why not try and just go with the flow? Tomorrow is a new day, and having the hope that it can be better is also crucial. It's never too late to become an optimist, whether you start today or tomorrow. Thanks so much for watching my very first episode. New episodes will post weekly, so feel free to click subscribe, like, dislike, comment. Like I said, I will share links to my sources in the video description if you would like to read the articles yourselves. I also encourage you to find your own sources, and if you find something interesting, post those links in the comments as well so I can read too. All right, thank you.